The Grand Basileus role requires the characteristics of perseverance and resilience to advance the mission of our beloved fraternity. For 112 years, guided by the supreme Basileus of the universe, Omega leadership has furthered the purpose of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Omega men were on the front lines as racial discrimination stood against Black Americans in the United States during the 19th century. New Orleans, Louisiana. Grand Basileus, Dr. Andrew A. Ray, grew up during a traumatic time when he had to sit in the back of the bus or vacate a seat when a white passenger got on.
As I said, the civil rights movement was heating up, and we shut down the campus in protest. And as we shut down the campus, and the reason we shut down the campus because due to the prejudicial nature of the area, what happened was two of our students died on the way to the hospital because at Southern University, both entrances had railroad tracks across. And the train would park there and wouldn't move. And so the ambulance could not get them to the hospital. So 4 of our colleagues died. So we had enough. And so we shut the campus down. And after we shut the campus down, we asked the governor we want an overpass over the tracks. And maybe I'll say this, but he told the president of the university, he said, tell them they ain't getting no bridge. We continued to protest, and Stokely Carmichael came down to help us out. And so when Stokely came down and we really got going, I had a brilliant idea because they were still holding out. I said, you know what? Why don't we all register to go to LSU? And so the word got back to the governor and to the president of LSU that we were going to walk down the highway to register at LSU. By that afternoon, we got a call from the governor's office. He said, tell them they'll get their bridge. You know, that's the way it came. He said, tell them to get their bridge, and we got it. So when I was down there a few years ago as Grand Basileus, I was talking to the young brothers, and I asked them, do you know how you got that bridge? He said, no. And I told them the story of how we got them to build that across the railroad tracks. So it was a very interesting time, but we were in the heat of the civil rights movement during that time, and it was good.
Miami, Florida. Grand Basileus, Dr. Edward Braynon Jr.'s parents, operated a grocery store for 30 years and describes his childhood as perfect. Because of the entrepreneurial spirit in the household, all he knew was ambition, so he pursued higher education. He represented the second cardinal principle and earned the degree of Doctor of Dental Surgery from Howard University in 1954.
I practiced dentistry for about 25, 30 years.
Aberdeen, Mississippi. Grand Basileus, Dr. David E. Marion's high school was integrated but internally segregated. He was Black Student Council president and Black Homecoming King, but there also was a White Student Council president and White Homecoming King.
And so when we got there in 1970, racism was still high. We had, I can remember in the middle of our town, particularly on Wednesdays, the whole downtown would shut down. And it was still a practice in 1970 for it to shut down. And the reason why was because it was customary throughout the times of slavery, during the times of hangings, that they would do them on Wednesday. And so the town had customarily, just think about that, all week long the town is open 8 to 5, but on Wednesday it closed. The whole thing closed down at noon. And so it was that old custom of coming to town for a lynching and those kinds of things.
Ocala, Florida. Growing up, Grand Basileus Dr. Dorsey Miller never lived in the same house with the same family members more than a year. Those circumstances never gave him a chance to bond with family. It was his love for school that offered him stability.
Strange thing happened. I was teaching American history, and then I got a call from Brother McMillan, Eros McMillan, to interview for a job in Atlanta with the poverty program, because he was one of the regional directors of that. And Sergeant Schreiber was John Kennedy's brother-in-law, was the head man, and he was interviewing some candidates for positions, some young guys. Eros told me that there were 26 candidates and only one was black. He wanted me to come and interview for that job as well. That would give him 2 blacks. And I went and they selected me for the job, one of the 2 that they selected.
Chicago, Illinois. Due to what many would consider an upper-middle-class home life, Grand Basileus Lloyd J. Jordan Esquire was harassed by some blacks for having more, and at the same time, he was discriminated against by whites because of the color of his skin.
From there, I went to a place called Finger High School. And Finger High School, those people I went to school with, a Shoup School, got separated. If you lived on one side of 115th Street, which I talked about being a little bit more challenging, to the side where we live. And I don't know if it's by design, but they let us go to another school called Finger High School, which was across, it was a mile away, but that was in the white folks' neighborhood, which was another battleground. So you cross 100 Hosted Street, you had to watch out for the battles, because now you're looking for the white folks back then who were trying to take out the black folks coming to their school. So it was either we're catching hell from our own folks or catching hell from the white folks because of where we lived.
Bradenton, Florida. Grand Basileus Dr. George H. Grace was born in the richest county in the state, and 13 professional players graduated with him, all with college degrees. He credits his high school principal for stressing education to advance the black race.
I heard Reverend Jackson speak, Justice speak. And Jackson had a conversation in New York City one night at Rainbow Push meeting. We were sitting over, had a private conversation, and he was telling me about the 3 phases of equality. And so, you know, we got the right to vote, we got integration, and then, you know, we got it's one before that, social. You know, we could go any place we want to go. But until we get economic strength, it's not gonna mean much. And that was why a lot of people don't understand. That's why Dr. King got killed. Dr. King went away from the racial struggle to the economic struggle. And one thing I know about America, they don't want to change the economic outlook. The people with the money and the power want to keep the money. Now, if you got something to offer them, they'll sell you a piece. But, you know, you got to have the economic strength to do anything in this country. We can stand up and go out. I don't even march anymore. I don't want to march. I don't want to demonstrate. Because if I demonstrate, I'm going to demonstrate with economic power. And one of the things we need to look at is just look at what worked for Dr. King. Okay? Now, he got killed because he was starting to deal with some economic things. But what is the single most, successful boycott we ever had? The Birmingham bus. When they shut those buses down, it shut businesses down downtown. And that fool, that sheriff they had over there acting crazy, them businesses say, wait a minute, we losing too much money. You got to go. And that's the same way it is today. We have not moved that far away. We have to understand our buying power.
Cornelius, North Carolina. Grand Basileus, Antonio F. Knox Sr., grew up with a strong-willed grandmother. His grandparents moved him to a small town in North Carolina to teach him hard work, values, and the importance of family.
We stood for what was right. One of the things that I did is when things were happening around the country with the police brutality, when things were happening in the political aspect of voting rights and criminal justice reform, I wrote about it. I stood up and made sure that people recognized that Omega was not going to be quiet about things that matter. And then when the things happened in Philadelphia with Starbucks, and the brothers was involved and unfairly arrested and adjusted, I went to Philadelphia and went with Ben Crump and stood out and supported those brothers and led a rally against that. So I want people to know that during that time, we worked together and we stood for what was right, and we let people know. And other organizations recognized us for that, and I think we're willing to come together, to work with us. I'll never forget that at the AFRA's National Conference, April Ryan was there, and we talked about the Divine Nine Legislative Day, which Omega led. And she says, wow, with North Carolina being a battleground state, and what you all did there should be duplicated all around the country. And so that was something positive that we're there at somebody else's national, but they're recognizing Omega for our leadership, and they talk about it should be something that's duplicated around the country. So good things happen by working together.
Pensacola, Florida. Grand Basileus, Ricky L. Lewis, grew up in a two-parent household with an emphasis on discipline. He considers himself blessed to have his father as a man to model himself after, and he hopes Omega men can have that type of impact on black male youth.
My commitment has always been dealing with young black boys. I'm on the board at the YMCA, the Urban Weingart YMCA in Los Angeles. Everybody knows Los Angeles is the gang capital of the world, so young black boys have been wilding out in Los Angeles for many, many years. And I've just been actively working with young men, trying to encourage them to be better young men, to be good fathers and good husbands. We started this thing called the Youth Leadership Conference when Rodney King got beat up and the city was on fire. The men of Omega decided to try to make an impact. We grabbed 100 young black boys and said, hey man, let's get together and try to save these boys' lives. And then of course 30 years later, we've been impacted the lives of 9,000 young black boys. Just encourage them to be good fathers, good husbands, be good citizens.
The role of Grand Basileus historically positioned the fraternity as a guiding light for the aim of freedom and equality.